Dear Members of Parliament, I don't mean to sound disrespectful with my next comment, but none of you will use the NHS. You are all rich enough to be able to go private. My dad has been in the NHS system almost his entire life. He was born on the 2nd of February 1947, a baby boomer, 1 year before the NHS opened its doors. Also, in the year the snow was 5 foot deep, one of the coldest years on record. Coal supplies were already low following the Second World War. Household electricity was cut to 19 hours a day. Television services were suspended. The radio was limited, and there were fears of food shortages. Dad was diagnosed as asthmatic, but the Ventolin inhaler wasn't invented until 1955. Dad received his first inhaler at the age of 11, in 1958. He barely set foot in school before then, but he had learned woodwork and other manual skills from his dad. At the age of 14, Dad had finished building his canoe in his bedroom. They had to take the window out to get it outside, but it floated. Dad wasn't expected to live past the age of 21, but in 1968 he married my mum, and in March 1969 I was born. By then, Dad had his City and Guilds in painting and decorating, following in his dad's footsteps. For my entire life, all I have known is the NHS system. Dad was always having tests and visits to the GP for his regular prescriptions of inhalers and steroids excuse me, to ease his breathing problems. The prescriptions became even more expensive. My dad used to be a milkman, driving his electric milk float in the mornings, painting and decorating in the day to earn enough money to feed his family of now 3 daughters and his wife. We've made it to 1979. Dad also plays bass guitar at weekends, builds and flies model airplanes, and he's always tinkered with motorbikes too. He took us on great holidays in a little caravan him and my mum did up. Dad painted it and Mum made all new cushion covers and curtains. It was lovely. But that was my first year of needing the NHS. My nana was driving me and my middle sister to hers for a weekend visit. I always lay my head against the window when sat in the back seat, feeling the vibration of the car used to make me sleepy. In 1979, cars didn't have back seat belts. A car was coming down a hill onto the road we were travelling and hit us right in the passenger side of the car, where I had my head against the window. I had a huge lump. The hair slide I had in my hair was in that lump and could be clearly seen in the X-ray. My head wasn't broken, so I was allowed home. They, the doctors and nurses, said if I felt sick I had to go back because I would have concussion. The experience frightened and hurt me so much that in the evening when I felt sick, I never told anyone. Sorry. A few days later, when I'm standing at the bus stop, I fainted, face first in front of the bus I'd just put my arm out for. A nice lady gave me a hanky for my bleeding face, and I went to school. Fortunately, my teacher was on the bus and took me straight to the headmistress, who phoned my mum and then drove me home because my mum was at home with my youngest sister, who was 2 at that time. The doctor came and I had to lay on the sofa for a week. Silly as it may sound, at 10 years old I had a profound moment. I knew all about the new hole they had found in the ozone layer, and I was still alive because I was here to save the world. So let's skip ahead to 2010. By this time, Dad has had that many different illnesses diagnosed, he's taking several different medications. He's 63 and looking forward to his retirement so he can have his Harley and enjoy more time down the flying field with his mates on their planes, fishing and playing his guitar, and more bike tinkering. Dad worked for a company that didn't use the correct safety precautions and he fell 30 foot from a ladder. He fell on a pot sink and concrete and survived. The NHS glued his head back together, stitched him up and bandaged him and sent him home. His X-rays didn't show any broken bones. Dad did try to go back to work, but he progressively got worse with his breathing and a new thing kept happening. He'd be sick for no apparent reason, violently sick, and for days would just sick up yellow tummy acid. Then he'd stop being sick and would have a few days of diarrhoea. Then he'd be his normal perky self. His breathing got really bad, and in 2012 he was admitted to the City Hospital breathing department. We all, himself included, thought he was going to die. But a doctor asked him a question he'd never been asked before. When you cough up your phlegm, does it look like little strands of cooked spaghetti? Dad said yes. He was diagnosed with bronchiectasis. The GP had never thought to check if Dad's new breathing problem was a different illness. It had gone unchecked for 10 years, and Dad was told it will eventually kill him because it's caused too much damage. Sorry. Bronchiectasis is abnormally widened bronchi. Your lungs have little tubes, a bit like tree branches in shape. These widen and fill with mucus, and it becomes infected. The ends of the bronchi curl over and the tubes fill up until eventually you can't breathe and you die. If it had been noticed and diagnosed earlier, he could have been cured. Dad has had a few more stays in hospital for antibiotics into his veins and steroids. Last year, the bouts of sickness followed by bouts of diarrhoea got more and more regular. Dad was back and forth from his GP like a yo-yo. More antibiotics. Then on the 9th of March this year, Dad began to suffer from a sore throat, causing him to lose his voice. Then he got the worst case of thrush in his mouth I have ever seen. I typed it into Google, and Dad's was worse than that. He didn't take any medication for 4 days because he couldn't swallow. I took him to the doctors. For the first time the doctor looked in his mouth. It just looked red, but Dad said that his throat was like razor blades. He was given some drops to ease it. The second visit, the GP wanted to prescribe a 500 ml antibiotic tablet. I intervened. I said, "Doctor, if he was my child, I'd ask for baby liquid antibiotics that's kept in the fridge and banana flavoured, please." The doctor looked at me. I said, "He can't swallow. How do you think he's going to get a tablet antibiotic down if he hasn't taken his normal medication?" By now, 16 tablets a day, including warfarin. The doctors gave us the liquid medicine, and Dad's file was put on red alert because of not taking his warfarin. I told the doctor, "I know the signs to look for if Dad has a stroke." The doctor never told Dad he was at risk, and my annoyance was coming out in sarcasm. Dad's thrush cleared up and he began taking his medication, only to begin being sick again, yellow acid. I took him back to the doctors. I explained Dad hadn't been eating for a week and began being sick again, and I suspected he had a blocked bowel. She was concerned for him being sick and prescribed anti-sickness tablets and to drink plenty of water because he was now showing signs of dehydration. I took Dad to the doctors 6 times in 2 weeks with the same problem. We called the NHS helpline. They just annoyed him by checking to see if he had Ebola. The doctor prescribed a new antibiotic. Later that evening, Dad was so bad he said he was going to use his pink card. This card, as far as Dad believed, was to put him right to the front of the waiting room because of his underlying chest conditions. Dad had never used it before, but he was desperate. He was convinced he was dying. We've spoken a lot about him dying, but he really thought this was it. He was admitted to the City Hospital breathing ward. A doctor checked him over. I told him all about the previous bouts of sickness and how by now it had turned green, and I was convinced he had a bowel blockage. The doctor checked him out and found Dad had tummy pain, often blamed on his umbilical operation, and agreed something was wrong and recommended he needed a tummy scan. Dad was given more anti-sickness medicine via a drip and told that it was on his records he was allergic to the antibiotic the GP had prescribed, and it caused violent sickness. As soon as he stopped being sick, he had a bout of diarrhoea. The doctor in charge told us that when he was not being sick anymore, he had to go home, book an appointment with his GP to be referred for a scan. I was not happy. Dad came home, saw his GP, who said after a week of my dad not going for a poo, should have some laxatives, as many as he could take. He took 8 and still didn't go. The GP prescribed suppositories. By the 16th day of Dad not pooing, we went back. The locum said he couldn't refer Dad. He had to see his normal GP. Dad's friend found Dad in a heap the next morning, being violently sick. It was still green. He took him to Queen's Medical Centre. By now, Dad couldn't even wee. My sister and I arrived at the hospital at 1 p.m. Dad was in excruciating pain and still sticking up green. The surgeon arrived. He said that the X-ray had shown something they believed to be a blockage and he needed a scan. To help make things more bearable for Dad, he had a pipe up his nose into his stomach to drain the fluids so he wouldn't stick it up anymore. He had to have a catheter to relieve his bladder, morphine injected, a bag of rehydration fluid and loads of blood took. By 8 p.m, the surgeon came back and told us Dad had diverticulitis. His bowels were blocked and he was in a serious condition. And if he was a healthy man, he would be looking to operate to give him a colostomy bag. But Dad's mortality, which means death, rate was 20 to 50%, up to 30 days after the operation. He told us he'd done his PhD in this disease and his gut instinct was to give him a different antibiotic. I made sure it wasn't the ones he's allergic to and we agreed that was the best route. By 9:45 p.m. Dad had the antibiotic. We left just after 10 p.m. The morphine was easing his pain and he was in and out of consciousness. It was awful telling his mates what had happened and what was wrong. During the night, Dad had the biggest poo of his life, only to do the same amount several hours later. His sickness had stopped and over the next couple of days all the pipes came out and he was allowed home. Dad wants to complain about the GP not detecting his illness sooner, and the city hospital should not have to follow procedure if he was admitted to the wrong ward. They should have sent him for his scan and not make Dad become so ill. Queen's Medical Centre staff were amazing. They let me and my sister nurse my dad as much as we could, supporting us by getting sick bowls, pillows and sheets. Then, when they needed to do their job, they let us support them by holding bags of fluid and tubes when they needed to move Dad from one bed to another. They were brilliant. The doctor/surgeon explained where we could find out information about the disease so it can be managed with foods. Dad will still have to have an investigatory operation while awake and is relieved to finally know what is wrong with him. During this time, all you members of Parliament have been arguing about the NHS needs more money. Your answers to get more money are to cut back on staff who are already rushed off their feet. I propose a new system is put into place. Yes, this system will initially cost a lot of money, but if you put another system into force, you will be able to save millions of pounds which will pay for the new running systems. To save money, we need some figures. In 2010, the Times newspaper published a chart. It said how many people died, then broke the deaths up into sections. In the UK, 500,000 people died. 141,446 from cancers, 158,084 from circulatory diseases. Sorry, I can't pronounce that properly. 18,483 from Parkinson's, Alzheimer's and similar, 11,000 arthritic diseases and illnesses, 67,276 from respiratory, 12,406 were kidney and urinary diseases. This figure totals 397,706 people. We can safely assume they were all taking medication. If these people's families return unused medication, it is burned or destroyed because it's being prescribed to someone else. I know because I returned the medication Dad was allergic to. If these people had £30 each of medication in their cupboards when they died, the total value is £11,931,180. If they had a month's supply of medication, the total value is £47,720. No, it's not. If they had a month's supply of medication, the total value is £47,724,720, based on a beginning value of £30. The majority of people returning medication would not contaminate the medicines, but to be on the safe side, the medication should be checked. All liquids destroyed, but all the usable medication should be recycled. Then the money raised should be used to employ more staff and MRI scanning centres built. Then people with illnesses that need regular medication should be scanned. Should they deteriorate, they should be rescanned, so you have 2 scans to compare changes. Then people like my dad will have earlier diagnosis, less treatment, and subsequently less money and time spent, which in turn will save even more money. 6% of the UK are pensioners. That's 10,683,333 pensioners who have paid their taxes for the NHS, and they will all offer a friend one of their tablets if they're on the same medication and have forgotten to take a dose. Yes, this may be wrong, but they're kind and they care for their friends. They want to feel cared for by the NHS too. The rules need to change to create a better system that will let pensioners enjoy their retirement in better health. The scanning systems will mean hospital staff have more time to care. The GP surgeries will have more time to find the cause and not give out medications for the symptoms. So members of the Parliament, please listen to the people who pay for the NHS and change the way it is currently being run. And while you're doing that, can the law of respect be brought in for medical staff? If they're on a break and need to shop in the hospital or use the bank machine, they should be able to go to the front of the queue so they are well rested. And no hospital members of staff should work for more than a 10-hour shift. The reason I have read this out on YouTube is because I feel that the process that my dad would have to go through to be able to complain is far too long-winded and would only make his health worse. Plus, I want the public to help me get this letter to the right person who can make these necessary changes happen. Oh, and by the way, my dad is on 16 lots of medication per day, and only one of them costs £30 a week. And even if the rest only cost £5 each per week, he would have £105 worth of prescribed medicine if he only had a week's supply when he died. If I assume everyone had £105 worth of medication, a week's supply, when they died, the total would be £41,759,130 worth. If that was 1 month's supply, it would be £405 times the 397,706 people who died, which equals £161,070,930 in 1 year thrown away or burned. Plus, there is still all the unused medications of those still alive that can be recycled. This letter is just a brief summary of what has been happening. It doesn't include the GP consistently not writing out my dad's full prescription, not writing in his notes about being allergic to an antibiotic and then prescribing it. It doesn't include all the times I've gone or my dad's gone to collect his medication, which is on repeat prescription, only to find the GP hasn't released the slips to the chemist, so his supplies were delayed, causing anxiety. After witnessing and listening to all the horrific experiences my dad has experienced, I have done thousands of hours worth of research, and when I had my own children, I decided to use homemade herbal remedies that I tested on myself first. My children have 100% attendance at school, and they only had antibiotics once each in their lives. My dad never wants to set foot in his GP surgery ever again because of their incompetence, and I want to make sure no one ever has to go through what my dad has been through. A nurse at the Queen's Medical Centre made me promise to put a stop to all this unnecessary treatment and wants my herbal remedies to be available for people to use. This involves my remedies being tested, and I need 30 years worth of proof that they work to get a licence to sell them. But my hay fever remedy was only made last year due to my son suffering and the antihistamines not easing it anymore. He took the remedy for 2 weeks and didn't have any more hay fever for the rest of the year. The remedies have been around since medieval times, but tasted nasty. All I've done is turn them into a syrup to make sure my son would try it. Elderberry and rosehip syrup for coughs and colds has been around just as long, and for severe coughs I make up a vinegar remedy that my dad's mum taught me to make. She died when I was 10 years old. I and thousands of people every day use the NHS, which is free to all upon entry. You, as rich MPs, will never experience the bad sides because you go private. Please stop bickering about something you quite clearly know nothing about and support the public. After all, you want us to be happy and alive, so we'll vote for you. Right now, I don't want to vote for grown-ups who bicker on TV like children in the playground. I want the systems changing for the better, and by recycling unused medication and using more natural substances, there is plenty of money to create a new system to make sure we are all healthier and happier. It's time for a change. Let's find the causes of these diseases and illnesses and stop treating the symptoms. Antibiotics are 30 years old and are not working due to overuse. Educate families to build up their immune systems and let them try herbal remedies first. Herbal remedies are absorbed more quickly, and the only side effects I've found so far are diarrhea caused from taking too much, and too much of the red ones can make your wee go red. I would like to thank everyone in the medical profession who has been supportive during my dad's illnesses and for urging me to speak up. I do hope I have been heard. I know I'm just a nobody, but there is a saying / story called Whose Job Is It? It's a story about 4 people named Everybody, Somebody, Anybody and Nobody. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was asked to do it. Everybody was sure somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realised that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. Thank you.